multisyllabic lessons, this portion becomes syllables. So if the word is donut, you're gonna say donut. What word? And then they would do the same thing the other way. So instead of individual sounds, which he said Wonders had people doing, which is weird, children's memories can really only hold 3 things at a time. And so if it's a multisyllabic word and you're giving them all individual sounds, they're gonna be lost after the first 3. I don't even think I could do a multisyllabic word after a certain number of sounds either. So if you want their working memory, short-term memory, make sure you're doing it by syllable components, and it tells you right in there to do that anyway. So, just so you know. Thank you, Sean, for pointing that out. All right, how'd step 1 feel? Pretty easy? Most of the first half is pretty easy, too. All right, step 2 is your visual drill. Sorry, your picture's blurry. It's really hard to scan something clear when there's a spiral right here next to it. But this is, the idea here, the goal is just for students to automatically recognize each grapheme presented. These are all the graphemes they've ever been taught up until this point, nothing new. Okay? And the idea here is we want it to be automatic. If you're noticing that there's certain letters that pop up there that they're not automatic on, you're gonna know that they need more review of that. And so if you're at a time in your lesson, and you're like, one of the options when we look at the small group implementation is dropping some of the ones that you know that group knows 100%. For example, they all know, let's say the S. You don't have to keep that in your review slides, you can take it out. If you know, without a doubt, those 4 or 6, 10 kids in front of you have that sound, you don't necessarily have to spend as much time on it. What I did learn is that the first graphemes to show up are the newest ones, and so those are the most important. That doesn't mean that if they have all mastered that, because it's spiral reviews, that you can't get rid of it, but it's just a good fact to know. There's usually up to 20 in there, so this can take a while. You can stop it short, or you can weed out the ones that you know they already know. So those are some options to make it quicker. You're going to flash the letters up there and they say the sound, and then the next time you're going to say the sound and they're gonna write the letters that go with it, that say that sound. Yeah, Kira.
So I just asked the question, can you do the slides like we do it on our laptop when we're meeting with our small groups? Is that what you're saying then? That's what I do. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
That's what I was just thinking.
Yeah, that's what a lot of teachers are finding is most helpful. Some teachers print the slides out and then they have it like in a binder and they'll just flip it. But there's certain things that on the slides when they're live that come in and out.
Right.
And we'll see what that looks like when we get to the slide component of it, but there's different variations. Another option too, if you don't want to do the slides for this, you can also have note cards and it's going to do the same thing. So you don't have to use the slides for the visual drill. There are options for you to use it however you want, but that's a great question. I believe you guys use your computers, right, Mackenzie and Kate?
I use my
Yeah.
laptop,
In some schools, they're doing a whole group, so it's up on their projector. But yeah, an easy way to do that would just to bring a computer over to your small group table. Not that there aren't any hiccups. Sometimes the servers are down on UFLI or your Wi-Fi, so you might want a backup plan if that's the case. Or you're just gonna do the parts that don't need slides that day, like the connected text or something. All right, so for step 2, it's only supposed to be 3 minutes. So again, you'll have to figure if we can get creative with what we can cut out of it, should we need to do that. So we're gonna put on my teacher hat here. All right, we finished phonemic awareness. We're gonna go on to our visual drill. This is not I mean, they're gonna have to look at that letter, but this is just the overview slide, just so you know. So the first one pops up and you would say, what sound? Good. What sound? What sound? What sound? Good. What sound? Good. This is the letter L. This is my error correction procedure if you were to say it wrong. This is the letter L, and the letter L says O. Say it with me. The letter L says what sound? O. Now tell me what sound the letter L makes. O. And then you move on. And then you would go through all of these until the very end. And that's step 3. Easy peasy. The next one is the auditory drill. There is no slide for this one, they're just writing the sounds. There's a couple of variations that go with it. You can have them write it on a whiteboard, you can have them write it on a piece of paper, like a lined paper for handwriting would use, or you can have them air write it. You're not gonna be able to really see what mistakes they're making that way, but if you're in a pinch, you can have them do it that way. They even say in the manual they can write it on the carpet in front of them or at the table in front of them. Another variation would be to pull the letter from your blending boards or your magnetic letters that you have for manipulatives. So a couple different ways. If the fine motor is what's getting in the way of your small group time, there's a time and a place to work on that during handwriting and writing time. We need to get moving quickly in our small group time, so bring the magnetic letters in instead, if that's the case. But really, again, automaticity is the goal, and it's meant to be super quick paced. If they hesitate, you tell them, and then you have them repeat it with that error correction procedure. And then, again, this is all review from steps that they've already learned before. All right, so now I'm gonna give you the sound, and I want you to write the letter. You guys can just air write it. And I'm gonna bring attention to some of the ones. Oh, now my lesson's on compound words, and I don't wanna be there. I'm gonna call attention to this very first one in your manual, because anytime there's a sound that has more than one correspondence, they are responsible for giving you all of them. Now, if they hadn't learned the CK or the K yet, they would only the C would be in parentheses there, but because they've already been introduced to that, they are responsible for writing all of them. So for example, I would say, all right, class, I want you to write the letter that makes or letters that make the K sound. You would write it, and if you only wrote one, I would say, what else? What's another one? Or language like that, until they get all three. If they're stuck and they're like, I don't know, then you just do that error correction procedure. Remember, we learned that the C says K, the K says K, and the CK says K, which was the lesson the day before, so they might not remember that. But just know that that one comes back over and over and over again. And then you would give the next one. Write the letters that says the sound. Good job, Emily. I like the way you wrote the letter U that says the sound. Some teacher pointers. Kate, you have them do it on whiteboards?
I would do it on my small group table.
On the table, right there. Some teachers have, how do you have them do it, Mackenzie?
I was doing whiteboards.
Okay. Do you wait until they're all done to show it, or do you look at them while they're doing it?
I just have them like show me when they're done with it.
Okay. Some teachers make it like a game where they have to hide it, and then they all turn them around at the same time, and she says who needs to add more, or who needs to fix it, or whatever. But that's a really great informal inventory of who's getting it and who's not. And it'll also tell you who might need more practice outside of that small group time. But it's just a quick way to gather some data as well. Questions about this portion? All right, you're gonna practice. You're just gonna pretend like you're holding up these letters with your neighbor, unless you really do wanna get on your computer and click through the slides, you can. But just know that you can either write them, you can pretend like they're in front of you. Just practice the language of what sound as you're flashing the letters or pretending to flash the letters, and saying, write the letters that say, or any variation of that. Make sense? And make sure you switch roles too. Go ahead.
What sound